We are live. How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the Cruising is Life podcast. Justin isn't quite here with us yet. He's going to be joining in the next couple of minutes. But we are joined by our special guest, Jerry Pike. How's it going, buddy?
Hey, how are you? Nice to see you again and get to talk for a while. This will look forward to this. Have some fun.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And for those who don't know Jerry, he does a lot of really good drone footage from Port Canaveral. If you want, you can just kind of pitch yourself real quick, shout out your channels and your pages and all that.
If you want to give you a follow, it's a Jerry Pike Photo, Instagram, Twitter, all that jazz. So, yeah, a lot of fun drone stuff, cruise ships, rockets, stuff like that. A lot of Port Canaveral, Space Coast content is what I do, and other stuff in Orlando as well. Do drone photography 107, anything that needs that. So if you're watching, you need a pilot, you can always contact me.
Nice, nice. Yeah, you do a lot of stuff with like like the well, I guess not Starlink launches like specifically, but a lot of the rocket launches. You got some pretty cool stuff there too.
That's all that launches nowadays anyway, so
Right.
it's always Starlink. But yeah, do a lot of launch photography as well as drone photography and stuff as well. So have a lot
Cool.
of fun with that. So
Yeah, for sure. So today's topic, we're really focusing on, Carnival's new ships and kind of the lack thereof new ships. Of course, got a couple ships coming out over the next couple months. Um, but after that, there's pretty much nothing. Um, so mostly we have Carnival Jubilee. She's ready to go and pretty much going to be delivered here in the next couple weeks or so. She just finished up her sea trials. And she's heading straight over to Galveston. And then we also have the Firenze, which is that Costa by Carnival ship that's going to be sailing out of Long Beach over alongside Panorama.
yeah, that one there is that. When is that one being delivered?
I think Firenze, if I'm not mistaken, is I think maybe in early 2024, maybe February or March, I believe. They did just announce it was coming out like a week earlier than anticipated, which is kind of weird that they took the time out of their day to say, yeah, it's going to be done a week early, so here's another sailing.
Hmm. Well, that's always good. And where is it sailing out of? You said the LA, I believe, yeah?
Right, it's going to be sailing out of LA alongside the Panorama and the Radiance.
Cool.
Yeah, but that one will be doing the 4 and 5 night sailings out of Long Beach, and then Panorama is going to be doing 6 and 8s and 7s as well out of there. So they kind of alternate, similar to what they do in Canaveral with those different itineraries and all that. But yeah, so after that, there's really no Carnival ships for the foreseeable future. Um, you know, Whereas there's other cruise lines right now that seem to be pumping out ships every few months. We have Royal Caribbean that's pumping them out. To the world's largest next year.
Yeah, that's crazy that like I remember seeing the first photo of like, oh, it's the keel of Star of the Seas arriving when Icon isn't even done yet. I'm like the progress is crazy there.
Right,
Over
exactly.
just watching them, the efficiency that they're working at is kind of crazy.
Right, exactly. And it really feels like Royal Caribbean. Again, nothing against Carnival, but Royal Caribbean has just hit the ground running ever since the COVID shutdown ended finally, and there's just Carnival just kind of got left in the dust from what it sounds like, or it seems like at least.
Yeah, they had a couple of those, the new, I believe, the XL class, like the Mardi Gras, the first one, and then the couple Costa ones that they made, plus the Jubilee, and now the Jubilee, and then the Celebration before that. But that seems like what they're, yeah, the ending out on that right now for what it seems like.
Right,
They
exactly.
do
And
have a lot of like these older ships that I see a lot like around here. I
mhm,
think the one that sails out of Jacksonville, I can't
elation.
what's the elation is I always hear about that. They always seem to be having issues with that one. Not really age related, but more passenger related. I always see that one in the
Oh,
news for all the
really?
wrong reasons. Yeah. Like a lot there's been lots of like, man overboard and tons of crazy stuff I see out of that one, and they've made a couple stops in Canaveral, I think too.
Yeah, I have noticed that. There's been like once or twice over the last couple months I've seen them just randomly pop up in Port Canaveral.
Yeah,
But yeah,
medical issues and stuff. They've had lots of weird stuff with that ship for some reason.
right. Typical Jacksonville crowd. It seems like.
The Jacksonville crowd, yeah.
Love it. Nothing against those Jacksonville cruises. If there's any of you here listening or watching to this, but yeah, like the Carnival really has, they have a lot of older ships. They have the similar, ship count when it comes to, I guess the sheer number of ships that they have compared to Royal Caribbean. I think they're both sitting at about 26, maybe, plus or minus one or two for each one. Uh, yeah, they've pretty much gone through the entire XL class here. I mean, again, the Jubilee is going to be done in the next couple of weeks, and then there's just nothing. I can't really remember a time that there's been a no Carnival ships, announced or even on order.
Yeah, it seems like, I mean, yeah, COVID obviously, but they were definitely working on them still through then. But it's
Right,
kind of interesting because yeah, a lot of them are aging. It seems, especially some of the ones from like the Elation is I've seen it a couple times. Like it's definitely showing its age.
right, exactly. And, most of those in that class are pretty much gone anyways, for the most part. The
Yeah.
all of those got scrapped during COVID, and they just kind of left over the Elation and the Paradise, which are, I guess, the two newest ones. But
Hmm.
those also had, I think, the most work done to them recently. They added the ducktail to them, added all those balcony cabins. That's probably what saved them, is all those balcony cabins that they added to it. Just, all the other ones that they scrapped off were, the ones that either didn't have balconies or had very few of them. So I feel like that probably played a big role in what was going on there and which ships they decided to kill off.
And it is curious. I'm wondering if, I'm sure everybody's heard the different talks about, is Royal going to ever build small ships? Again, there is a market for ships that are small like that,
Right.
that can fit places that something, say the Mardi Gras or the Jubilee can't, go to. I think mostly bridge height is the biggest um, limiting factor there, but there's definitely, a lot of stuff in Alaska is, there's you have to have smaller ships that are able to navigate the place up there. So
Right.
it's curious what they could go forward and what model, if any, they are gonna go after next. 'Cause obviously the XL class is, I want to say, the biggest one they've ever done.
Right.
It's a big ship, so it's
Yeah, it's definitely their biggest by a long shot, and it's been a very successful ship class. I think, I mean, three is probably enough for them. I don't see
yeah.
them. They've even said that there is no new Carnival ships coming until, or at least 2027 at minimum. And even if they were to last minute order a ship, the way the shipyards are backed up right now, as far as new builds, there's just no way they'd be getting a ship out before 2025, even if they started today. So it's definitely going to be a
Yeah.
long time, and it's weird that Carnival's going to have a period of 3 to 4 years before there's ever going to be a new one.
Yeah, definitely an interesting time for that. I mean, I think definitely the Mardi Gras has been very successful here in Canaveral. Every time I
Right,
see it, it's always very full. I haven't seen the celebration down there in Miami yet, and then we'll see the Jubilee out of Galveston, see how it does there. But definitely, they've even had their work cut out with the Mardi Gras and the celebration here, especially with the LNG fuel. They've had
right,
there was, I remember specifically one time, I think earlier this year, the Mardi Gras was delayed, several hours, 3, 4 hours off the dock because they had fueling problems with their barge. Now that the celebration is down in Miami, so
hmm. I
we'll see.
think I
They
was
still
there for
have.
that.
Yeah, I remember. I remember it was like 8 o'clock at night. And they were still
Hmm.
there because they just couldn't get a load of fuel because the LNG barge is just too backed up. Because, yeah, where they get their fuel is up in Savannah, Georgia. So every
Right,
week, the LNG refueler barge is going from Georgia to Port Canaveral to Miami round trip in 7 days, which is
that's tough.
it's crazy.
Yeah, and that's a little barge, and it doesn't move all that fast either.
No.
It's got its work cut out for it, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think. Well, I'm curious to see how Disney does it. It's not the same, but
Hmm.
they will have two LNG powered ships here in Canaveral soon. And same with Royal will actually be the better example with the Icon down in Miami and eventually the Utopia in Canaveral to see how they go about fueling those on a weekly basis with, hopefully LNG is what
Right,
the intended fuel is, but obviously they can run on diesel as a backup as well.
right. Yeah, I wonder if they're gonna do multiple barges, unlike what Carnival is doing, because Carnival, like you mentioned, just has the one barge that they're fueling with. between two
Yeah.
ports in a week.
Yeah. So far, it hasn't worked out.
It hasn't
Probably
been the
according to the
easiest
plan.
thing.
It doesn't seem like it's always on time. So
Yeah,
we'll see. They have time to plan with Icon and then Utopia eventually, but
right, exactly.
I don't I believe there is a second one of those barges being built. I don't know who specifically for.
Hmm.
That it might be. I think I want to say for Icon it'll be primarily used for
Probably.
the clean Everglades. I want to say because the clean Canaveral is the one that fuels the LNG Wish. But the one that the Carnival uses, the Q Ocean 4000, is the one that does the Carnival ships. So we'll see. I mean, they're independent companies. They can pick whoever they want to fuel it
Right,
up.
right, exactly.
But it is interesting to see the lack of cooperation between the different cruise lines. Hey, we'll pick one company and all fuel together. And they no, they pick their own companies and don't talk to each other. It seems like.
Right, for sure. With I guess the struggles of that, do you think Carnival's next project would be natural gas?
I think they would get a lot of criticism if it wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's going somewhere smaller or that doesn't have easy access, like on the East Coast anywhere, they can pretty much get fairly easy access with some sort of LNG barge out of Savannah. Can
Mm-hmm.
reach Jacksonville, Miami, Everglades, Canaveral, all that stuff here pretty easily. But if it's on the West Coast, I don't really know what kind of LNG facilities they have over there, honestly. And if
Right.
it was primarily meant to go over there, I would see, it would only make sense to not have it be LNG. But again, this seems like the way everybody's going now, so it's a
Right, exactly.
curious thought.
Right, yeah, and I definitely think they would get some criticism if it wasn't natural gas, and not that I don't think
Hmm.
it would be, but going through the logistics like we have been, I mean, that's not going to be easy for them to do.
No, definitely not. I
But
think,
three's already pushing it
yeah, because it's the same thing with, I believe Galveston has some sort of onshore LNG, do they not?
with Galveston.
Yeah, because that's the other big East Coast-ish LNG port that is here in
Oh,
America, at least. Because that's why the Jubilee is going there mainly, is because they have LNG in Galveston. I believe
right.
so, or I could be mistaken with that, but I'm pretty sure there is some sort of LNG readily available in Galveston for the ships.
Oh wow, that I didn't know. I didn't realize it was onshore fueling, like unlike
It,
what they've been
it
doing.
could be, or it could be not. I mean, it's probably not a big deal either way. I mean, it's Texas. There's tons and tons and tons of refineries for everything there,
Right,
so I'm sure
exactly.
it's there somewhere. But
Right.
I'm not entirely sure where it comes from.
Right. I think if any of the ports here on the East Coast, and saying Texas is East Coast isn't really accurate, but
Yeah,
if anybody's gonna have it on this side of the area in the Caribbean, it's gonna be Texas. And with all
yeah.
those refineries that they've got, it makes it so easy for them. So I wouldn't be too surprised if they actually have onshore fueling for that.
Yeah, I do remember there was a big outcry here in Canaveral when they wanted to put onshore LNG storage here, and everybody's like, no, 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 because they didn't want it to blow up, which there's already a lot of fuel storage here that it's kind of silly, but like, it's like, oh, it'll explode. A lot of the fuel over there could explode, but it hasn't done it because they keep it in a safe manner. But
Right.
LNG is definitely much more difficult to store than you'd say typical crude oil, so
Right.
it's
Exactly.
it's a thought.
Exactly. Yeah. Um, I didn't realize. I guess that makes a lot more sense why they would do Jubilee. I mean, Jubilee at this point wouldn't be very logistically smart to do over on the East Coast with one fuel barge.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
probably
definitely
another
not.
another big a big thing, with and if you've ever noticed, and anybody that's listening has ever noticed that with the Mardi Gras and the celebration in Canaveral and Miami, they're never in their home port at the same day.
Nope.
It's
They
always
always alternate.
Yep, it's always Mardi Gras and Canaveral on Saturdays, and Celebration is always the Sunday ship in Miami. And if they're doing 6 and 8 night cruises, they alternate.
Yeah, very occasionally they'll switch. The Mardi Gras will be here Sunday and the
Hmm.
celebration will be Saturday. But yeah, the idea I guess that they have is yeah, the Q Ocean Fuels Mardi Gras here Saturday sails to Miami Sunday and then heads back up to Savannah to get a new load and come back down, which it's they've had several hiccups with that tight of a schedule and it just caused a lot of issues.
Right,
But
exactly, and
it's supposedly doable.
right, exactly, and I don't think a lot of people know, but these ships, despite being natural gas, they do run off of diesel. You know, in a pinch, they could definitely run off of diesel. And I think there's been times I've seen actually the the diesel fuel barge next to Mardi Gras rather than
They definitely have. Yeah, I've
yeah,
seen multiple times when they've had to fuel with diesel here. One of them,
yeah.
yeah, obviously caused that huge delay, but I think several other times they've just kind of. I haven't seen Q Ocean in port at all, on a
Hmm.
Mardi Gras Saturday. Either they don't fuel at all. I'm not entirely sure how much fuel they onload every time they get a load from the LNG barge. If
Hmm.
but they're doing 7 night sailings. That's a long load of fuel for like a one-way fuel stop. So either they're getting it somewhere else or they're fueling with diesel somewhere else. I mean,
Right, exactly.
I haven't had the chance to sail on the Mardi Gras and watch, so.
Yeah, I did sail on Mardi Gras last year in March. Yeah, March. And yeah, we got to did I mean I didn't see it up close or anything like that, but I could see
Hmm.
off my balcony, I could see that the LNG barge sitting right next to us fueling up.
Yep.
But
Yeah.
yeah, what were you saying?
Oh, nothing.
Okay. But yeah, I guess with that, the logistics of natural gas, and I definitely think their next project will be natural gas. But when it comes to, I think timing is, and of course, COVID, of course, played a major part in this. But I think it really came down to the timing of these new builds and these projects because with Royal Caribbean, again, they're dominating the market. They're continuing to do that, and they probably will be for the next decade. Um, up until up until COVID, it feels like Carnival was, or at least they were competing, and now Royal Caribbean's just kind of left them behind. With Royal, they had Odyssey and Wonder coming out relatively same time, but they came out as soon as COVID ended, or the shutdowns ended, and then they're also set up not only for Wonder and Odyssey to make a big debut, but now they have Utopia making, its huge debut. They've got 3 Icon class that are already ordered and still coming out over the next year. And then you've got Norwegian that's launched a new ship. Next year is going to be the only year until 2028 that there's not going to have a new ship. Whereas, there's Carnival that they probably were in the early stages of their next projects during, maybe at least before the COVID shutdowns, as they were starting to prep for the arrival of Mardi Gras.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Definitely was interesting to see the different approaches during COVID about like how the different cruise companies handled their fleets versus dry
mhm.
docking them, just parking them somewhere. And it's curious to see how you can kind of see how it turned out. I want to say Royal did end up dry docking a lot of their ships, which obviously cost them tons of money that they weren't making at that time.
Right.
But I think in the long run, it usually would. I think that plan would turn out ahead of saving the money to hope to have more later when you start cruising again. But still,
Right.
it's a risk they had to take. I think, and I think it paid off well for them.
Right. And I think I noticed a lot of cruise lines did that too. I know Norwegian did take the time to add scrubbers to the Breakaway and the Getaway,
Mm,
which was a very extensive process to do. And I think those ended up being delayed coming back into service for you know probably about a year or at least a couple months. But yeah, I guess with it, these 3 ships were already planned ahead of time, and they were already coming out in this phase in this time frame. Whereas Royal Caribbean and Norwegian were very long term, looking forward. So even despite everything, they couldn't go back on the orders. They couldn't really cancel. They could have canceled the orders, um, but it's definitely not something you want to do with a new build.
no, definitely not. Yeah, the new build of the Norwegian, the definitely looks very exciting. So
Yeah, the
I know.
Aqua does look really nice.
Yeah, I know you said it was it coming to Canaveral sometime like 25 or
Yes,
6 or something? I want to say 25.
I think it's April of 25, if I'm right. It's somewhere springtime of 2025. And of course, I don't know why. It's probably due to the lack of terminals in Canaveral, which is becoming a bigger and bigger issue now. Um, but they're running Friday to Friday cruises rather than the standard, Saturday or Sunday 7-day sailings.
Curious. I didn't. realize that there was going to be Friday to Friday during that time. But yeah, that is odd
Hmm.
days because definitely coming on the next December,
There's Justin.
January. Hey, yeah, there he is.
Give me like a 1 minute.
All right.
But the there's several days. I was just looking through the schedule. Six ships, six ships, six ships, six ships. Back to
Hmm.
back to back days in December, January coming up. So it's
Yeah.
definitely picking up versus some of the Sundays here in Canaveral. There's been two ships, which is like, man, there's not a lot of stuff going on, but it's definitely ramping up as it comes into this next season here.
Yeah.
A lot of shifting going around. There's been in like what, four brand new ships coming in, maybe five that haven't been here either in a while or new home ports
Right. Exactly.
for all the cruise lines, and they're still shifting around and coming, but lots of changes recently.
For sure. Welcome in, Justin. How's it going, buddy?
Good. How's everything going here? What did I miss?
Not too much. We just kind of talked about Carnival's new builds and the lack of new builds really once Jubilee comes out. Um, so yeah, do you have
Cool.
any thoughts of I guess on the
Um,
topic? I'm also adding you into the thing here.
no, you're good. You're good. I mean, I think it's interesting. I feel like at least with Royal Caribbean, we've kind of heard rumors, at least,
Mm-hmm.
of whether they're gonna
Yeah,
build a smaller ship or just anything in general. But I feel like we haven't heard anything from Carnival, not even like rumors, not that at least that I've heard. Um, so it makes me wonder. I mean, with the Mardi Gras class, whatever they call it, the Excel class, I don't know how much crazier you can get than that. Like if they're planning something big, um, so it makes you wonder if they've got anything kind of planned right now, at least in the drawing stages, because it'd be interesting to see what happens because they don't have anything on order after Jubilee, right?
No, and the CEO of Carnival's even said that there's no plans for any new ships until 2027 at earliest.
Yeah, that's
And
interesting. I wonder if they're working on something pretty big to wait that
right,
long.
that would be big big.
right, and I know
Right. That's what I'm saying.
a lot
Because
of
the
it
Mardi
had to
Gras.
do with COVID and the I think Carnival probably struggled more than anybody else during the shutdown. Because they had to say they had a massive fleet was an understatement. I mean, Carnival Corporation, that
Yeah.
umbrella, there was over 100 ships within that, and they chopped off about 20% of their fleet.
Right.
Yeah, it's a lot of money that's sitting around not making money. Huge amounts of investments that are just sitting around and
Hmm.
costing money, right, to run because you still can't
Yeah.
just you can't just stop doing, it's a ship. They have to be constantly maintained and
Right.
crewed and staffed. You can't just dock it and shut everything down. I mean, you could, but it's not really feasible.
No, not at
Right.
all. But yeah, it's very interesting. And even with it goes for Carnival Corporation as a whole. I think they have ships on order. I think in through 2026, and they're Carnival as a entire corporation has nothing at all. Like I think they've got a small seaborne ship in 2026, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Maybe they're. I mean, they typically, at least the last few years, they seem to have built very similar ships between at least two companies.
Mm-hmm.
Like Costa and Carnival have that XL class, and then Princess and help me out, who P and O have
P&O.
those like those newer Royal class ships.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if they're planning something between Carnival and some other brand to, whether it's a smaller ship or I don't know how much bigger you can get from the XL class. I mean, I guess it's possible, but
Yeah, Royal Caribbean's
yeah,
proof
Yeah,
of
we
that.
we, we see the icon. That's
right, yeah,
That
as big as
behemoth,
you can get.
that behemoth that we call Icon of the Seas is definitely proof that you can go pretty big.
right,
And you know, we touched on it earlier, but they have the arrival of Jubilee and they have the arrival of the Firenze from Costa by Carnival. That you bring it up. What are your thoughts on the future of Costa by Carnival? Is that something they continue to run with? Is that something where Carnival ends up absorbing Costa as a whole, or do you think
I
we'll
think
we'll get rid of the Venezia and the Firenze over time?
I think this is going to be a test run for them. Um, I think the two ships that they chose were good options. You know,
Oh
if you're
yeah.
gonna test something, you might as well do it on a ship that, not a older ship. You might as well do it on a ship that you want it to do well on.
Hmm.
And I can see that if it does well, bookings are strong and people like that kind of Italian flavor and style to it. I would not be surprised to see them bring more Costa ships over and possibly eventually phase out that brand. If it doesn't do well for whatever reason, I would be very interested to see what they do with that sister brand that they have.
Hmm.
Wasn't the Jubilee originally intended to be a Costa ship, or am I
Um,
mistaken here?
Aida.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
The
forgot the name of it,
small
but I remember it
German.
was.
Yeah, small German line. It's amazing that
Oh, right.
they already have two of them, and they were going to build three. And
Yes, because they have two. Yeah, yeah. Sorry.
Aida is such a small cruise line. I don't know how popular they are over in Germany, but they are a small secondary cruise line. I'm amazed that they're able to operate, at capacity with something that large.
Hmm.
And
Right. Yeah. And like you said, I don't know how popular they are. I know they have, at least at some points, had at least one ship sailing somewhere in the Caribbean. I don't know
mhm.
where the ship was actually sailing from, but I feel like I remember having one of those like medium-sized one. For them, it was a medium-sized ship in Cozumel. So I don't
Mhm.
know where. I think the ship was leaving from somewhere in the Caribbean and doing like unique Caribbean itineraries. But I don't know how popular it is over in Europe or wherever the ships are. So that would have been interesting to see them get a big ship like that.
Mhm.
I wonder if that's the reason they didn't bring it over there, if they saw that there was no demand for it.
It could have been. I mean, there's Carnival definitely has the demand for it, and then kind of
Right.
like what they did with the Panorama, because they did the exact same thing with the XL class as they did with the Vista class. They
Yep.
built Vista and Horizon, and Panorama was originally for P&O Australia, which is going to be the first ever new build for P&O Australia. And the whole ordeal with the Carnival Splendor, was it going to go to them? Then it wasn't. Then they're getting a princess ship, but we're still keeping the Panorama. It was all over the place, but we ended up getting the Panorama pretty much in the same fashion, and pretty much the same deal happened with the Jubilee here. Except
Right.
we weren't, just not the whole ordeal with the Splendor.
Right. Yeah,
That
exactly.
whole oddball of a ship that thing is. Um,
The new ship for Princess, that's new in its class. That's the only
mhm.
one as of right now. So
Yeah.
there's no plans to have any sister ships of that one right now at all.
I think there's a plan for one more, for
There,
One
two.
more?
yeah, I
Yeah, I
think there's two.
believe. Yeah, I believe it's Sun
Two.
Princess is the first one, and then
Oh, yes.
Star Princess maybe is the second one, something like that.
I believe I saw that
I
somewhere now that
think
you reminded me of that. Yeah.
I think you're right. Why do I feel like there's already been a Star Princess?
There was, and there was also a Sun Princess.
Mm.
The Sun
Mm.
Princess was like an older one, but I believe Star Princess was in the same class as like the Ruby Princess. So she wasn't like a small or older ship.
Oh,
So
really?
I'm surprised they got rid of it. I don't know where it is now. It might just be with P&O. Um,
Probably.
so yeah,
Because yeah, I think the whole exchange with the Panorama involved was the Golden Princess, if I'm correct there.
I think you're right.
Yeah, and it's funny how P&O and Princess work. They're almost their own independent companies. They, again, Carnival Corporation owns them, but they were their own thing, and Carnival just kind of took over the majority shares. Became the majority shareholder for that. Back in the early 2000s. Which, kind of a fun fact here: Royal Caribbean was actually in talks with Princess originally. During that time, and Carnival kind of came in and started buying up as many shares as they could, and just kind of did what in the corporate world considered a hostile takeover, and pretty much just
Interesting.
they just said, "Oh yeah, we're in charge now.
Mm.
I did
We're gonna
not know
take out."
that. That
Yeah,
would that would have been interesting to see if Royal Caribbean had purchased them.
yeah, it'd be a very weird and interesting future for P&O and Princess. That's for sure for Royal
Yeah.
Caribbean. But yeah, and I guess hopping back over to the Costa by Carnival, it does definitely seem like it's a big success, at least for the Venezia, and it's funny because the Venezia is not what I imagine a Carnival ship, and that was always my biggest concern. It's not it's not a Carnival ship. It's a quote unquote luxury Italian ship, and that's not what Carnival is. So I've always had like the mindset that there's people that are booking their first Carnival cruises on the Venezia, on the Firenze, and getting to the port like, what is this?
Right. I'm sure it's quite a shock.
Oh, for sure. It definitely seems successful. I think it's definitely something that's probably more appealing for the seasonal Carnival cruisers, somebody that, goes with them multiple times, people that, are gold status or higher probably. But Venezia seems to be doing very well.
Yeah, and I've heard a lot of good things from it too.
Yeah, and Justin and I are booked on that one. I'm very excited for that cruise. It's going to be a good time.
Yeah, I'm very excited.
It's a very pretty ship, and I'm interested to see, because there has been talks with Fort Lauderdale recently, and I think we talked about this maybe in one of our original podcasts. But they're looking into some sort of renovation for Terminal, was it 21 in Port Everglades?
Yeah, I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, and the specifics of those rumors and those talks was that it was going to be enough for an XL class ship from Carnival.
Right. Yeah.
So Jerry and I kind of talked about the logistics of having, more than just the two natural gas ships. Of course you can build more LNG barges, but of course that's going to cost a lot of money, and that's something that's going to take a lot of time too. Do you think we'd ever see a Costa Smeralda or Costa Toscana become Costa by Carnival?
I don't know if that'll be something that happens soon, but I do think there are plans for it, or at least going to be plans for it, especially how well Venezia has been booked up and the feedback that at least that I've heard.
Right.
Especially if they're going to get rid of their Costa, subsidiary. I would not be surprised to see them do that. At least if they're not going to do the whole cruise line, they might as well take advantage of the newer, bigger ships. I wouldn't expect to see a small. I don't know what other smaller Costa ships they have out there right now, but
I think they just have what we would consider the Destiny class and the Concordia class. I believe are the only ones other than the new ones, the big boys.
Right. Yeah. So, yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it happened.
Yeah, right, exactly. And I think there's been, what would be really crazy is if that we end up with all of the Concordia class ships as Carnival ships in the near future, and of course all the, the XL ships as well. It'd be very weird and interesting to see how that all plays out. That'd be a lot to take in, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
But with the
Yeah, it would
lack
definitely
of,
be interesting.
what were you saying?
So it'd be interesting to see if where they all would propagate to. East Coast to here.
Yeah.
Galveston. Somewhere Miami, New York, all that stuff. Do you know if the XL class can fit in New York? I want to say no.
I think so.
They can.
They-
I know because it's the bridge is the issue there, obviously.
Right. I think
Oasis fits in there.
right.
I mean,
Oasis
but
does fit
that's
in.
the special. It's specially fit. Like right, they retract the
That's true.
funnels at the top, so
Right.
it cuts off like 20, 30 feet. So that's what I'm saying. Like they don't have any sort of can't retract the whale tail.
You know how
That'd be
crazy that
interesting.
Carnival
Yeah,
Freedom
it'll-
2.0, baby.
Yeah.
It'll retract in.
Well, now it's the
not-
Panorama 2.0.
Yeah.
Right. That's great. They could just do that every sailing.
Hold on,
They'll just have a
Hold
permanent
on,
crane
let's
on
chop
board.
the funnel off.
let's chop the
Right.
funnel off in Miami, then we're gonna sail up to New York, pick up passengers, come back to Miami, put the funnel back on.
Yeah, exactly.
It's every time it's a 30-day sailing plus dry dock tour.
Yeah,
Right. Yeah.
that'd be interesting. I know originally with the Mardi Gras, one of her she was supposed to do like 2 or 3 inaugural sailings from New York before she came down to Port Canaveral, to my knowledge.
Yeah. So there you go. She probably does fit. It's probably a close call, but
Yeah,
I think a lot of them are close calls. I mean, even the Oasis with the
Yeah.
stacks down is a pretty close call.
it
right,
pretty
for
much
sure.
scrapes the bottom of the bridge.
hmm
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely a sight to see. Is just, well, anything going under a bridge on any ship and anywhere is really neat. But yeah, with the Oasis class going underneath that bridge, it's really pretty nuts.
Right.
Yeah, I feel like if they did take over the Toscana and the Smeralda, that would kind of help them in their positioning for, competing with Royal Caribbean, because again, Royal Caribbean is just leaving them in the dust. And I have my opinions about the Prima class. They're very pretty ships, but they're not the best ships out there. Of course, I haven't been on them, not yet, hoping for a tour maybe soon, but
Hopefully.
yeah, fingers crossed on that one.
Mm.
But like the Prima class is kind of flopped to it, at least from the reviews I've seen. But so I don't think Carnival has anything to worry about when it comes to the Prima class and competing with them. But Royal Caribbean, again, since COVID, the restart happened, Royal Caribbean's hit the ground running hard, and they've just not stopped, and they're not letting up anytime soon. They haven't
Right.
even launched the Icon yet, and they're already talking about their next gen ships, their next project.
Yeah, I think World Caribbean just has so many ideas
Mm-hmm.
for ships, that they can easily break those ideas up, because it seems like they're putting a lot of ideas into like one ship now, to make them so big.
Mm-hmm.
But they could easily scale that back and make like several new classes of ships if they wanted to.
Right, exactly. And
Yeah, just take individual ideas that have worked very well on a certain class of ship, say like the Icon, certain aspects of it, and put it into a specialty kind of ship similar to, I would say, what the like the Odyssey with the special little the eye and stuff.
Right.
Mhm.
Special things like that, kind of unique to each class of ship there.
Yeah,
right, and
definitely.
they're aiming that Project Discovery, and I'm hoping to do a future podcast on just that project alone and the ideas behind it and where that they could really go with it. But you can do so much more with 120,000 tons, which I think is where that ship is probably going to lay. You can do so much more with a ship that size than you could 20 years ago.
Oh yeah.
Royal could build a 120,000 ton ship or 110,000, something comparable in size to the Carnival Glory, and built it in 2023. It's going to be a world difference of a ship.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, it's very interesting to see what the future holds, when it comes to that. And, there's 3 Icon class, there's, one more Oasis class coming, and this new project, and then there's Carnival that's just nothing.
Right.
Yeah,
I
it
think
does feel like right now, what Royal is doing is, oh, we have all of these, bookings, anything that they seem to put out right now, it's like, oh, well, people will just book on it, so we'll make the biggest thing possible to get
Hmm.
as many people at the same time to book on the single ship to,
Hmm.
you know,
right.
put all your revenue right there. It's cost efficient.
Right,
Right.
exactly.
A lot of money. At the end of the day, they want to make money, and that's what they're doing.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Making a lot of money.
Oh, for sure. And not to say that the XL class hasn't been, a extremely successful project, because it absolutely has been. But the last uh, everything that's come out of Royal Caribbean of the last, decade has been just an absolute banger of a ship. Like, they've been incredible. The Quantum class was a huge hit, even though they did a lot of them over in Asia. There's not many, here in the Florida side of things, so we haven't experienced those firsthand, really, or not had a huge opportunity to. But like the Oasis, everything after the Oasis was just unbelievably well received, and always just received like a lot of hype, and they are always just done so well.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And I think they really continued that momentum, and they continue to experiment with older ships by renovating them, and then applying those renovations into new ships because they're doing well. And then that's how we ended up going from the 2009 version of Oasis to the Utopia of the Seas almost 15 years later.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting to see their evolution and how they do it, and because sometimes it's older ship getting renovated that inspires newer ships, and
Mhm.
sometimes it's the newer ships that inspire the renovations that these older ships get.
Right, exactly. And I think that I really get that vibe from the Dream class. and specifically the Breeze and going into the Vista and the Horizon. I think
Right.
that's that project and that the way those ships were and the things that they did with those ships. Carnival did that with the Sunshine class. You know, not that Sunshine and Radiance and Sunrise are all the same exact ship, but Sunshine's its own odd looking thing. But
Right. Yeah. I don't know
but
what
you
that
know,
is.
there's somewhat a quote unquote the same class, and that's just a prime example of you learn from the new, you apply it to the old, you also apply stuff to the old, and if it works, throw it in the new thing.
Exactly.
So I'm wondering if, and another strategy that Carnival could go, and who knows if that, would happen, but they could always sunshine the Conquest class, because that is a project that they kind of did during that lull period between the Breeze and the Vista, because there was a couple years difference. The Breeze was 2012 and the Vista was 2016, so there was a 4-year gap, and it was very similar to what we're experiencing now.
Right.
So I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility that maybe they'll just take the Conquest or the Glory and do something crazy with it.
Yeah. I'd be okay with that. I mean, that'd be great. At the same time, I'd love to get a new ship. I hope.
I'd much
And I don't
rather
know how
that.
they would do it. I don't know how they would do it. I hope they don't build another Excel class
Mhm.
and tweak a few things and call it a different class.
Mhm.
I know you have heard me
Yeah.
complain about it before, Brandon, with the Dream class and the Vista class. I know they're
Mhm.
technically different classes of the ship,
Mhm.
but they're basically the same model design,
Yeah.
at least
Yeah.
exterior as the Dream class. So I hope they
Mhm.
don't do that with the Vista class and add like a ducktail and be like, oh, it's a new ship.
That
Yeah.
seems to be the like the Carnival special is switching it
Yeah.
up a little bit, just enough to make it a new class, and it makes it so
Right.
confusing to keep track of them too, because there's like 8, 10 different classes, and 4 of them are like basically the same thing, but like
Right.
just slightly different to where it's a new class. It's like when they added the Disney, the Wonder, and the Magic. When they added the Ducktail, you add the Ducktail. Oh well, now they're different classes of ship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like what? But it's that they did it, equally, so it matched it out. But still, it's odd.
Yeah. And it's definitely not the first time they've done that either, because they did do that with essentially the Conquest class is a stretch Destiny class.
Right.
And the fun fact for those who don't know as well, the Conquest and the Glory, the first two in the Conquest class, those were originally ordered as, well, Triumph class, but Triumph and Destiny are the same thing. So I loop them all into the Destiny class, but they were originally ordered as Triumph class ships, to go alongside Victory and Triumph. But then I guess closer to the, the construction process, they said, hey, can we make these a little bit longer? And so that's how we got the Conquest class. They made them just pretty much a stretch version, almost like we got the Voyager and the Freedom class, essentially.
Right.
That's, I think, the closest comparison is the Voyager and the Freedom. It's like 100 feet longer. It's somewhat easy to tell externally, a little
Yeah.
more so, because it's kind of visible with like that little, at least with the Independence that used to be here, they had that golden set of windows that something like the Mariner or the Adventure doesn't have.
Right, exactly. And it's
Plus the
funny.
name. That's something I realized not that long ago, was on the back, on like the sail looking portion,
Mhm.
there's a decorative, like a big, nameplate on the back that said, I say Indy of the Seas, Independence of the Seas. Whereas the Mariner, the Adventure don't have a big plate like that. They just have that little sail piece of glass, but no plaque there, which was, it's like, huh, they have space for it, but it's not there
Oh,
for
up
some
by
reason.
the behind like the Crown and Anchor, or like
Yes,
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't,
near
and
the near the sphere.
right,
The
and
sky
what's weird
pad.
in some of the original renderings for the Oasis and the Allure, they had nameplates on that
Oh.
piece that goes by like the basketball court and the mini golf.
Mhm.
Yeah.
They had nameplates, and it just never got put on the ship.
Yeah, I remember seeing the original renderings. I vividly remember this because, again, this was when I think you and I both were just getting into cruising and getting interested with like watching.
Right.
I remember seeing the rendering saying Project Genesis in that spot that you were talking
Right.
about. with that nameplate like the Freedom class have compared to the Voyager. But it is
Yeah,
funny.
it's very interesting to see how they add little details like that in renderings, and then
Mhm.
they don't bring it to the ship. It'd be like one thing if the Freedom class didn't have it and they were like going to do it on Oasis and they decided not to, but they didn't have it on Voyager class. Then they put it on the Freedom class, but then they didn't do it on the Oasis class. But then they did it on the Quantum class.
Yeah. They did it. It
So
was
like
a
I
little
don't.
different with like the Quantum class because it wasn't like the giant plate. It was more of just like the letters, but
Right.
it didn't have that. I
Yeah.
guess that plate backing on it. But yeah, it was essentially the same thing. And I really like that. That's one of my favorite things about that
Yeah.
class and about the Quantum ships is how they put the names in those spots.
Yeah. I think I like Odysseys more than like Anthems and Quantums,
Hmm.
but you know.
Oh, that's right. Because Odyssey's up by the little pods for that
Right.
C-plex area, whereas Anthem and Quantum are down on the glass.
Right, exactly. And it's
Hmm.
weird if you look at least for Quantum and Anthem, most of it, like that, the glass behind it is like blacked out. But then where it says like of the seas, it's not. So it's like harder to, you can only see like the like Anthem or Quantum, and then of the seas, it's like harder to see because the light from the deck is shining through the glass. It like wasn't blacked out.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah, it's you'd have to look it up. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's how it is. I don't know, but it's very weird.
Yeah, for sure. And jumping back to Carnival, I guess just refocusing.
Yeah, sorry.
No, no, of course, because again, Royal Caribbean's a huge competitor, and they're leaving Carnival in the dust with all with all
Yeah,
of these crazy ships that they're putting out, and Carnival's not putting out anything anymore. Well, they've got the big Jubilee and they got the Firenze, but like after that, there's nothing for a while. Uh,
right.
but Big Stu here in the chat, it says just dreaming, but I'd like to see them revisit the Pinnacle project or something similar. I think that would be
Oh,
something that's really cool.
yeah,
Do you
that
think
would be
that they
awesome.
would? So Carnival's next project, 200,000 tons plus or minus. What do you think?
I want to say plus. I'm going to say plus. That just seems to be the trend of everything right now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even Royal Caribbean, they had Oasis and they still went bigger. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that's where the cruise industry is right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think what a lot of the companies seem to be doing, kind of like I mentioned earlier, you have a big ship, you fill it up, and then you make a ton of money in the same spot versus, I guess what Carnival had issues with in the COVID. They had so many smaller ships, and they just cost so much more to maintain
Mm-hmm.
during a
Right.
time where you're not making that much money.
Yeah. It, I think it would definitely be good for them to go over 200,000 tons. I'm wondering if maybe this Project Discovery as well. I wonder if that's going to shift the industry. So again, Royal Caribbean, every time it seems like each project's going to be a game changer. What they did with the Quantum class, revolutionized the tech side of things with the industry. Fast internet speeds, just the robotic bartenders, just random things like that.
Right.
But that ship class revolutionized the industry. The Oasis class revolutionized the industry. The new Oasis class still does it. They're just incorporating everything that's great about the Quantum class into the new ones. And then, of course, now Icon of the Seas and the Icon project is essentially just, a start from scratch Oasis project in the 2020s.
Right.
I'd definitely be interested to see if anything, I would say they maybe go 150,000 tons. If they don't go 150,000 tons, I could see them going, 210,
What's what's Mardi Gras?
180,
190?
180.
180. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
Which I think that's a perfect size. I've
Yeah.
always been a big voucher of anything between 150 to 180 is probably the sweet spot for any ship.
Right.
Yeah.
I will always prefer the Oasis class. I love the big boys and the 200,000 ton ships, but realistically speaking, I think the general population and the general cruiser, the sweet spot is something that's between 150 to 180.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, I definitely have heard. I don't know, it's not so much a complaint, but more of an opinion that the Oasis class was just too big
Right.
Yeah, it was when it came out, and
for some
honestly,
people.
today it still is for a lot of people. I mean, those are
It,
big ships.
it depends what you're
Huge.
looking for. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, if you're looking for the big, the thrills, the latest technology, just something that's just massive and just, you know, all around just incredible to even experience, yeah, try the Oasis class. But if you're looking for more of a traditional type of cruise, you're definitely not going to get your traditional, old school vibes on Oasis. You're not going to get it on
Right.
Utopia, and definitely not Icon.
Yeah, definitely not.
But
No.
and I think what they did with the XL class was amazing, and I wish they would have built a fourth one of those. They're definitely not going to, and that's kind of where I think the Costa by Carnival thing might play into factor here with at least Smeralda at least. But I'd love to see another ship in that class. But I think if they want to compete with Royal Caribbean, they really need to come up with something fast.
Yeah,
Because
like I
it
said, I don't know where their planning status is right now for new builds, but
right.
it's very similar to what's going on in Orlando right now with the theme parks.
Hmm.
Universal's building a whole new theme park, new hotels, and all this, and
Huge.
Disney struggles to build a new ride. So it's very similar to what's going on with Royal Caribbean building all these new ships, and even rumors of new ships coming out. And Carnival's just like, hey, here's a ship we already had. It's Italian style.
Yeah, exactly. Here's a Vista class, but it's an Italian ship, and here's the third
Right.
one of, again, nothing against the Jubilee because the Jubilee is incredible, but
Hmm.
here's our third in class. Have at it. That's it though.
Right.
It has,
Yeah, that's
has the
it. That's
Texas
all you
star
guys
on the
need.
bow. That's all you need is the Texas star on the bow.
Exactly.
Right.
That's it.
That's right. We're done
Makes the
after
whole
that.
ship.
Yeah.
They've done some different interior work with the Jubilee. I know Justin's been on the Mardi Gras at least, for hanging out for the day. But that
Yeah.
strip on the starboard side, where Emerald's Bistro and that like lounging area.
Hmm.
So that the ceiling there, it's not a solid panel like it is like at the Meraviglia class with MSC, but it's like they're like intertwined like wavy LED panels.
Really?
Hmm. I'll
I
have
gotta
I'll
look
have
this
to show
up.
you a picture of it later, but it's
Yeah.
actually really cool. I'm sure they'll do like just like underwater effects, like fish swimming around. I'm sure it's gonna be something cheesy
Right.
like that, but like they definitely did do other things with Jubilee that the other two didn't have.
Interesting.
But yeah, I'm just very interested to see what Carnival does, and I'm sure they are in the early planning phases for this new class of ship, whatever this next generation ends up being. It's just a matter of when they start talking about it. And again, they COVID put them in such a bad place, especially with all the debt that they had to take on. That what they need to focus on as a corporation is paying down the debts and getting back to where they were pre-COVID. But they're not going
Right.
to get to the point where they were in pre-COVID if they're not building new ships.
Right. And that's why Royal Caribbean's gone all in on it.
Hmm.
You know, yeah, they've also taken out a lot of debt, to stay alive in during COVID, but
Hmm.
with the way things are going now, I mean, cruising's at an all-time high. I think we've already surpassed like 2019 levels. If not, we're very close to it, but I'm pretty sure they've already surpassed it.
Hmm.
And the way they're charging for these ships, I mean, they're gonna get out of that debt a lot quicker than
Hmm.
we otherwise would have thought.
Right.
Oh yeah, a lot of those icon first sailings. You look at that as
Yeah,
you
and
Bro,
the, the
you're
final the,
sweating.
fi- the final payment was just due for some of those cruises recently, so
yeah,
they
mine
probably made a
was.
whole lot of money.
Mine was, and oh boy. And the deal that we got on that Icon cruise is a steal compared to what the prices are now, especially for that
Yeah,
fourth
it
sailing.
was cheap back then. Who
I
would have
know.
thought?
Who would have thought $3,000 is cheap for a balcony cabin? Good
Yeah, they
God.
wanted before I canceled, they wanted $3,300 for two people in a window cabin,
Hey,
and now it's like 6,000.
it's incredible.
Yeah, I was gonna say that some of the cheapest ones that I saw are 6. It was
Hmm.
like, wow,
It's
that's
crazy.
ooh.
I randomly priced out a balcony cabin just for like the month of June, not looking or anything like that. I was just like curious because I know the price, how the prices have been. Two people in a balcony, 9 grand in the middle of June. But
Like
people are still
at some
booking.
point, they're gonna have to bring these prices down because I'm not going to say the demand's going to completely go away, but it's obviously not going to stay as high as this, and
Mm-hmm.
people aren't going to want to pay that. It's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. I definitely
Yeah.
agree.
I mean, it's business. They're riding the hype wave, right?
Mm-hmm.
Overpricing
Of course.
things. If you want to
Mm-hmm.
put overpricing, yeah. However, and you put a price on it, right? It's up to the consumer eventually. But if people are
Right.
willing to buy into the hype, I have
Mm-hmm.
a lot of experience personally with, doing a lot of stuff what I do, just like on the side with selling things. People buy into hype waves. They pay way more money than they probably should
Mm-hmm.
for
Right.
certain things that aren't really, once you look at it, it's like, oh, it's not really worth that much
Mm-hmm.
Right.
now and later
Exactly.
on. So but hey, that's the way it works.
Yeah.
I've done the same thing.
Right,
You got to give it
exactly.
to them. Hey, Royal Caribbean made these prices, and they're people are booking it, so good for them, right?
Exactly. I mean,
Yep.
even with the prices, as high as they are, like we've been talking about, like people are still the demand is still so high and the bookings are still going so fast at this pricing or these
Yep.
price points. They had to release 2026 cruises for Icon 3 months early.
Which is insane.
I mean, you're not seeing that with Carnival. You don't see that with the Jubilee. Again,
No, definitely
there's a
not.
big hype wave and there's a big hypes around, the XL class, but that that class is finished to really kind of put
Right.
it into terms. I mean,
Yep.
they're done. They built all three of them. They built all 8+ of them, across all their brands. Like
Right.
they really do need to refocus and really create that buzz around themselves again to do what Royal Caribbean is doing. Royal Caribbean again is paying down their debt. At their last earning calls, they've almost paid off like $1 billion of their debt. And it's
Crazy.
probably due
That's
to just everything going on with them. They had such a big hype cycle with Wonder. Utopia's their marketing. Whoever is in charge of marketing with Royal Caribbean is doing probably the best job of marketing that I have ever seen.
yeah. And the
Definitely.
only reason you're not seeing as much hype for one or for Utopia is because they've got Icon coming out.
Right. I can
Yeah.
guarantee give it give it until about middle of March of 2024 and Utopia is going to be the only thing you see out there.
Oh yeah. Like you said, once Icon gets a couple sailings under her belt and the hype dies down from it, and Utopia's her release is creeping up.
Mhm.
It's what do they call it? Like the biggest weekend or something like
Yeah, the
that.
world's biggest
Whatever they're
weekend
Yeah.
is
right. Yeah.
They're
It'll
putting it
be
right
all you
into
see.
yeah.
mhm,
And it's crazy that they're gonna starting to put it right into 3 and 4 nights,
mhm.
Right.
Yeah,
which is unheard of for a ship that big. So.
I never
yeah.
would have
But
thought.
they've
Never would have
they've
thought that.
proved it, with all the ships. I mean, right? There's always a Oasis class. Well, not always, but typically, it just took over, right? The Allure doing the three, or is it three
Mhm.
and four nights
Yeah.
out of
Yep.
Canaveral? Yeah, they
At
just took
Carnival,
over
yeah.
doing that from the Independence, I want to say. So
Yeah, and
upsizing it, that's
a couple years ago it was the Majesty running that itinerary.
Right.
Yeah, so it's been a big change in the industry, just kind of doing all that, and that's one thing that I will always say that Carnival needs to do is there's there's no way that they're going to be able to compete with the Utopia of the Seas on that itinerary. It's just not going to happen.
Right.
yeah. I mean, and you
If they
saw.
want to, they're going to have to put an XL class, which they're not going to do.
Yeah, I think that was part of Royal Caribbean's tactic there. I mean, they obviously have a reason to put a ship like that on weekends
Mhm.
because their weekend cruises are they're some of the most popular right now.
Mhm.
But I think that was kind of their idea. Like, what what other cruise line is going to put a ship even remotely close to this on
Mhm.
weekend cruises? And what other cruise line? I mean, Carnival now is building their little private island now, but right now, what other cruise line has a destination like Coco Cay?
Right, exactly.
There's so
Carnival's
much there. It's crazy.
Carnival's
Yeah,
next project. Do you think they debut the ship on weekend itineraries going to Celebration Key?
that is a good question. I think they're gonna have to, whether they want to or not.
With
I think they're gonna have to.
That's what I'm thinking. Whether they want to or not, if they want to try to take over that itinerary and that market, which they've already kicked Norwegian. There's a reason that Norwegian does not do 3 and 4 night itineraries anymore.
Right.
I mean, just flat
They've
out,
given up.
Royal Caribbean ran them out of the market, and our friend Robbie has even said they gave up. You know,
Yeah.
our friend Robbie's, close with some of those people in Norwegian, and essentially we were told they gave up. They can't compete with that.
They can't. And it seems like the trend now is a lot of families want to go on cruises, and sometimes they either don't have the time
Hmm.
or the money to go away for a week. And a lot
Hmm.
of people are flying in. So, with flight prices the way they're at. So these weekend cruises are, I mean, even for Utopia, they weren't too crazy of like price points that I thought it was going to be a lot more.
Hmm.
And these families are finding out that, you know, we can still go on a cruise and how am I trying to word this the right way? We want to go on a cruise, but we don't want to go on something old and small. Like we want to have like a good time. And now that they're putting these like basically the newest Oasis class ship on 3 and 4 night cruises,
Hmm.
it gives these families the opportunity to still go on a cruise and experience pretty much like what a 7 night cruise would be just for the weekend.
Hmm.
Like you said, just
Yeah.
a few years ago it was Majesty. How many people want to spend their hard earned money on flights, hotels, and a cruise just to go on Majesty of the Seas? Now that they
Right.
have these big ships going out, it's more incentive for them to try and get into the cruise. Like maybe they've never been on a cruise before,
Hmm.
and this is a great way for them to start. A quick 3 night cruise on an Oasis class ships. You'll be hooked.
Oh, absolutely. And it,
Definitely.
So
Yeah. And I can see the allure of like having a 3 night cruise because firsthand you can take off a day and a half of work
Mhm.
and
right,
go on a 3 night Friday to Monday, and you can be back, go to work late Monday and take off Friday, and then you have a weekend there. You're right, three
exactly.
nights and
That's
then
why we
that's
do
the
it.
best thing there. Yeah.
Right. I mean, me and Brandon pretty much go every other month on a weekend cruise just because it's
Yeah.
so easy
It's so
now.
easy. I tell you, I was home. I was home, put everything down, sat down, relaxed, pulled out my laptop to start editing the Allure videos, and it wasn't even 9 o'clock yet.
Yeah. I mean,
I was
that's
back
great.
before 9 o'clock on Monday. I could have gone to work that day. I did. I definitely wasn't going to, but I could have. You
Yeah,
did.
no, the last 3 night that I went on, I was with two other people that took off. They were, one of them took off 2 days, but one, went back to work half day Monday, and
Hmm.
then they were
Yeah. That's what
back
I
at it.
did. That's
Yeah.
exactly what I did after the Allure. I drove right back to Tampa and went right back to work.
Hmm. It's
Yeah, and that
crazy.
So
was,
it's
uh,
convenient.
and that's the itinerary that the Allure just took over. I was on the Independence for the 4 night, and it
Yep.
was
Right.
cheap. We had an interior cabin, right? But it was like $400 a person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
It's
ridiculously cheap. The
It,
Allure is
yeah.
going to be more, but still, like that's for a family. That was with 2 people per
Right.
cabin. It's crazy because
yeah.
we were talking about like and that's the other topic maybe for another show is the some of the cruise lines charging now for more entrees, like a main dining. We probably
Right.
ate more than $400 of
Yeah.
food just
Don't even
today.
get me started with
We were thinking
Norwegian.
about that as like, man, like, oh, we felt like we ate our money's worth, not to
Hmm.
mention the cruise
Right.
itself, right? Like you're on there, but
Exactly.
just the food.
I mean, this cruise that we've got. So this is after I go on Icon, but Justin and I are booked on Liberty of the Seas. What did we pay? 330 per
I think.
each.
I mean, it's dirt cheap.
We paid 330 a piece for 3 nights. Which again, $100 a night is better than a hotel rate. But we're getting
Oh
our,
yeah, you'll
we're
pay
getting food
almost
included,
double that.
everything.
Right.
But And then just jumping over into the chat here, Christy says, before any new builds, Carnival needs to completely revamp the Conquest class like they did with the Destiny and Sunshine class, minus the new names. I definitely agree with not changing the names. That's 100% sure.
Yeah.
It's more of a
Kind of
marketing
wish they didn't
tactic.
change the Destiny class.
Hmm.
The name is, yeah, it's all
It's all
mark
marketing.
because just getting rid of stigmas,
Hmm.
I guess, is maybe
Yeah.
the
You
way
get
to
rid of
put
the
it.
Triumph. That was probably the best thing Carnival ever did for themselves, is to get rid of the Triumph
Right.
name, just because of what
Yeah,
it was associated with. Not
the
that,
same thing with
yeah.
like Comcast. People used to they hear the name Comcast and just get filled with rage, but just change the name to Xfinity and whatever. I
Oh,
mean,
no problem.
oh,
And
okay.
Yeah, fine.
and if you're not nerds like us, they don't know that it was
No,
already a ship that they
people.
had out.
Mhm.
They don't know. They
It's
Right.
see it.
crazy the
They
people
see
that don't.
Carnival Radiance. Oh, it must be a new ship. Oh yeah, it is. Look, it's brand new.
Brand new. It's got a brand
Yeah.
new name.
Yeah, you wouldn't even know it came out in 2000.
Yeah.
It seems so silly, but it works, right? Again, with the Comcast example, half the people that I talk to don't realize that Xfinity is just rebranded Comcast.
Right.
Literally.
Yeah. Hey, like I said, if it works for the company, good for them.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But I like the idea of revamping the Conquest class. They really, it'll be hard to put it up on 2023, modernization, but they could sunshine, quote unquote, sunshine those ships and
Right.
bring them up to par with, some of these new ships. I'm not saying put a roller coaster on it. There's no way in hell you're putting a roller coaster on a Conquest class ship.
Right.
But if you completely revamp those ships and put all sorts of really exciting things, that's one way they can compete with the Utopia. Not that it will, but it's going to be the closest thing they can do and run those on 3 and 4 night
Right.
itineraries.
Right.
We got the Carnival Glory that's coming over to us. We got the Carnival Conquest out of Miami. Revamp it. I mean, they've already got new water slides on it, but big water slides. Put a ropes course on it. They did it with the Sunshine
Yeah.
class. Put a ropes course up there. Put something exciting on there. Like it, maybe a mini sky ride. God, I don't think that's possible, but you know, do something big and exciting and revamp those older ships and put them on the weekend cruises. If you're really
Yeah, I
wanting
can.
to compete with those ships and compete with what Royal Caribbean's doing right now.
Right. I can almost guarantee when the Conquest class starts going back for their whenever their next major dry docks are, like their 5 year whatever,
Hmm.
whenever those start coming up again, I can almost guarantee that they will at least add ropes courses because they seem to be adding little things here and there as these ships
Hmm.
go into dry dock. Like I think Liberty is the only one that hasn't gotten that new waterworks park
Hmm.
on the Conquest class. Like all the other ones, like just randomly got new water parks.
Hmm. Yeah,
So I wouldn't.
out of
I would
nowhere.
not be. Yeah, so I would not be surprised if ropes courses are the next thing. Because, like you said, they put them on Sunrise, Sunshine, and Radiance, so they can
Mhm.
obviously do it. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's like the next little thing they just do out of nowhere.
Right, exactly. It again, they got to do something, and with the lack of ships over the next couple of years, it's easy to throw a ship in dry dock. 200 million to revamp a ship. 200 million's a lot.
Yeah,
That's the price tag for I think what they did with Sunshine. Sunshine was a big deal, but even the Oasis that was like 160. So like if you
right.
put
And they get a
that,
lot.
you can put that kind of money into a ship, you're gonna get a good good return for it, and I think it'd be pretty successful.
Right. Oh, 100%.
And
Yeah,
it's so much better
it's
for
always
them to
really
do.
cool. Yeah, no, it's I was gonna say it's always really cool to see the evolution of the
Hmm.
Oasis class with all the dry docks that they've done with the different
Hmm.
ships in the class, like from start to finish, and they're all like different now. If it was Carnival, I think the Wonder and the Utopia would be in their own separate class, but
Hmm.
For
because they
real.
look so different than the original ones. But like, if you look at timeline of like everything they've done to the Oasis, it looks almost nothing like what it used to, which is it's really interesting to see the
Hmm.
amount of work that they've put into this ship.
Yeah,
Right.
it's like the Destiny. The Sunshine looks nothing like the Destiny.
Nothing like it's crazy.
Nothing. I mean that's a huge water park on the back of that ship. You know.
Yeah, and
Oh yeah.
it's the kind of work that they need to be putting into those ships if they want to keep them, viable
Hmm.
without building
Right.
new ships, which they could as well.
Right, exactly. And I get 200 million to revamp and just completely redo a ship is so much easier and cheaper than spending a billion to build a new ship. And
Yeah.
if Carnival is what Carnival is trying to do, is keeping the budget low by not ordering new ships, they at least need to put a ton of money into the existing ships to bring them up to at least compete with what the other cruise lines are doing.
Yeah. Definitely.
Norwegian is the last of Carnival's worries. It's Royal Caribbean.
Right.
Royal Caribbean is running away with the market in every way, shape, and form. 7 night itineraries, ships by themselves, the weekend cruises. Europe is a different story because they have a really good European lineup. Um,
Right.
but they've got Odyssey and everything over there. But Carnival's never does. They maybe have one ship now. They're getting very adventurous. They're putting one Spirit class ship over there usually every year. But
Didn't they have didn't Carnival Freedom do something over there like right when she came out like a summer season or am I just
they
not
used to do
remember?
that. So
Okay.
I think the Freedom did it. The I think I don't know if the Breeze did it. Um,
I think she did.
the Vista did, and I think Horizon did like 2 weeks before it went
Gotcha.
to New
Yeah.
York. But they did do that with the Vista. I'm surprised they didn't do that with Panorama, just given that it was, they had to take her all the way to LA.
Right.
Which Panorama, I still don't know why they put the Panorama over there. And on with all the nonsense that's going on with the Panorama and how many propulsion issues and that the ship's having, it's not the ship itself and it's not the class, because people are like, why is the Vista class having so many propulsion problems? It's not the ship, it's the azipods. Oasis and Anthem are both down an azipod right now. And
And Allure had the problem twice, and she was in dry dock twice to get it fixed.
right, and Oasis a couple years ago was in dry dock when that crane fell on it, and that was a whole
Yeah,
a
it's a
whole
whole
mess,
That's a whole
whole
different can of worms.
different can of worms. But that was what the Oasis was in for.
Right.
So I mean, it's not the ships, it's the propulsion. But
Yeah.
I guess I'm kind of like segueing the topic into the video I put out earlier today. But it's the issue isn't the azipod, it's just the fragility of it. Like, those things are so unbelievably fragile that just anything happens. Norwegian has had a lot of problems with the escapes azipods. I think the Joy is getting an entirely new engine soon. If I wasn't,
Wow.
I
did
I
not
remember I think it was Robbie who was telling me about it. It's either the Joy or one of those big boys are getting a new engine completely, and like an entirely new azipod and everything too. It's
I don't
crazy.
see how that, like, I guess you have to build it up inside, because like there's no way you just drop the whole engine in there. Like, I mean,
They have to cut a hole in the side of the ship.
Yeah.
is that what they're doing?
Very
Yeah.
complicated.
It's going to
I
be
would- 'cause I was
very
gonna say the only
convoluted.
way is you're cutting a hole, because yeah, that doesn't sound like that's like
Yeah,
last worst case scenario.
It's a,
Yeah,
something
it's a
it-
happens.
it
very
It is, so-
Norwegian
Because, I
cruise
mean,
line
like-
thing to do.
Yeah,
'cause
exactly.
The whole point of those engines is to just be continually refurbished throughout their life cycle, so they don't get replaced. It's the engine of Theseus, if you want to put it that way.
Hmm.
Mhm.
I like
You replace all the parts in the engine, but is it still the same engine?
right, exactly. And Christy again in the chat says, I actually really like this. So we've already talked about how Norwegian is essentially given up on the 3 and 4 night itineraries, but do you think Prima in Canaveral and Viva in Miami do you think that they could do it?
I think they could, but
I would like that.
NCL just doesn't. They just don't do things the right way.
Yeah. The other thing is they're a private island.
Are they still? Yeah, I was about to say, are they still tendering?
They are
Yeah,
still tendering.
I'm tendering there in the end of January on Epic.
What
Can't
I
wait.
was told is that the way the dock is designed at Coco Cay is some environmental piece of it. I don't know exactly what it was, but it screwed over Norwegian for ever having any plans to put a dock there.
Mm.
So I like
Maybe
the
World
idea
did it
of
on purpose.
probably. I have a whole idea of what they need to do, and I can probably get into it here in a second. But like, I think the biggest problem with NCL on 3 and 4 night cruises is that they can't compete with Coco Cay. It's not even. It may not even be the ships. It's like they can't compete with Coco Cay, and that's what Carnival's
That's
trying to
also-
do.
That's the huge draw for a lot of the weekend. Is the island is just so good,
Hmm.
right?
Right.
You can go to, it's not the same to go to Nassau on a 3 and 4 night. Nothing against
Right.
Nassau, but still, like, it's not Coco Cay.
Exactly.
Exactly, and I think
It's
that's why
cool if
the
you like to
weekends.
see- Like, if you like to see a lot of ships in the same place, it's unparalleled. But if you don't care about that,
Which most normal people don't. Which I
no,
don't know why
again,
they
yeah, that's the 1% there. There's
Mhm.
like, oh, there's
Right.
8 ships here. Wow.
Exactly.
Who would be like that?
I don't know.
But I mean, yeah, if it, I feel like with Coco Cay coming out, and you're not coming out, but becoming what it is today, that's really what changed the market for those
Mhm.
weekend itineraries. Because
Yeah.
I mean, we've been there, I think a total of 9 times now, and
Something like
it
that.
never gets old. That is one
Right. Oh, I
incredible
love it
island,
there.
and you can see Coco, or you can see Great Stirrup Key, which is Norwegian's island, right across from it, and
I remember seeing that on my last
boring.
cruise.
It's boring looking. They got a
Yeah,
lighthouse, and that's it.
They got a
we got
lighthouse,
to
some
see.
zip lines, and that's it.
Yeah, we got to see the Norwegian. I want to say it was probably the Escape that was parked offshore their island when I was at Coco Cay last time, and you could see the little tenders going back and forth.
Right.
Yeah. What if Norwegian really wants to get fancy with it? This is just my idea that I would pitch. Is that Norwegian needs to sell Great Stirrup Key to Royal Caribbean. Royal Caribbean puts in just a long bridge. It's a long bridge, of course. So run a tram back and forth, because Norwegian, what they did do well is that it's good for relaxation. They've got villas, they've got a lot of like cabanas, all sorts of really nice like relaxation areas there in Great Stirrup Key. So like for the people that want kind of that vibe of it, it's perfect. If they don't want the craziness of Coco Cay, have a tram service that runs back and forth, because they have the trams that run up and down the pier already. Have something that
Hmm.
runs over to Great Stirrup Key. You've got more zip lines. Put a zip line. They've already got it over there at Great Stirrup Key as well, and they have it in Coco Cay. Put a zip line that goes from one island to the other. I mean, there's a lot of ideas you can go with this, but
Right.
Norwegian could take that and go get another island or go somewhere else, build up a different area in the Bahamas, like Carnival's doing with Celebration Key. Celebration Key is not an island; it's part of Grand Bahama Island. It's like
Right.
5 miles from Freeport. So it's not like this
Right.
tiny little island in the middle of, in the middle of the ocean here, like it is with Coco Cay. Coco Cay is like maybe like what, 1 square mile. I mean, it's a tiny little
Yeah.
island.
It's
They just
very
have a lot there.
right.
But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different ways that Carnival could really go about this to just kind of not only, you know, keep the momentum going through the next couple of years while they wait on a new class of ship, but they also, they need to start talking about their next generation ship too.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing. Like we've said before, there's rumors that Royal Caribbean's building at least a new class or
Hmm.
going to start building, and we just haven't heard that with Carnival. I don't think we've heard anything, not even like general speculation. Like we've
Hmm.
just heard nothing.
Right, exactly. It's
And
really weird.
a lot of that leaks does help. Like, Brandon mentioned the marketing team at Royal Caribbean is doing an amazing job about, marketing their new ships and their classes. But part of marketing a lot of times is like not it's not really a leak when they do it, but then they make it seem, that they give out tidbits of information, so it seems like a leak, and then that
Hmm.
gets people excited and hyped about it. When you see a leak about something, it's like, oh, this is
Yeah.
coming out, the icon class, or blah blah blah. It building up the hype for it
Hmm.
by, letting out tidbits of information,
Hmm.
kind of unofficially, is
Right.
something a lot of, companies do.
Hmm.
They'll never say that they do it, but they do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Of
That's
course.
it's a way that, and then plus, and then eventually the big reveal of it just officially
Hmm.
is always exciting.
It
But like
makes it that
it's
much more exciting, really.
yeah, the leaks makes
Oh
it more
yeah.
exciting.
I mean, even the captain of the Radiance of the Seas was talking about Project Discovery recently, like
Right.
publicly on the ship in like a meet and greet, just openly talking about, of course there wasn't a lot of information, of course, like, but
Hmm.
he was talking like, yeah, this is in the works, whether it
Right.
whether it happens or not, we're working on it, we're looking into that,
Yeah.
because that's,
It's
that's a different
getting a lot of people
market.
excited.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's buzzing right now. I mean, there's a lot of people talking about Project Discovery right now. And
Right.
if Carnival at least like, even if it was a revamp of the Conquest class, if we talked about earlier, like at least tease that, that would create a little
Right.
bit of buzz.
Yeah,
And
we haven't heard anything.
it also, again, going back to the marketing of it all, there's been little to no marketing for the Jubilee.
Yeah, besides like what John Heald posts on Facebook, I haven't.
John Heald cannot be your marketing team. Love him or hate
Right.
him, I'm indifferent about John Heald. He's really cool. He's the brand ambassador, all this, but you cannot rely on John Heald as your marketing team. I know they
Right.
have their social media people and all that, but like the overwhelming majority of stuff that comes from Carnival is talked about by John Heald.
Right.
They need to do a excessive, revamp of their, the way they market these new ships. I mean, even the Celebration, they're big Miami-based cruise ship in the right by headquarters, and it's like, yeah, here's the Carnival Celebration. It's our biggest and best ship ever. You got a roller coaster. I mean, they marketed the ship. It was good, but
Right.
I mean, not nearly to the extent of what we're seeing with the Icon or the Utopia.
No, I feel
No,
like
see that-
every football game I put on, every basketball game I put on, every commercial,
Hmm.
there's either Icon or Utopia.
Hmm.
Same. I remember vividly, not yesterday. Yeah, yesterday watching the football game, I saw an Icon and a Utopia commercial, and
Mhm.
Right.
somebody pointed out to me, it's like, yeah, and it kind of feels like, they did market, the celebration, but it feels, the difference between the celebration kind of felt like it just appeared in Miami. It popped up one day. It's like, oh, here we go.
Right. Oh,
Here it
Like
is.
what
the
is that?
icon is like, people are counting down the days to when it's going to be here. People are excited.
I
They want to
know.
see it, right? The celebration was new,
Mhm.
you had the Mardi Gras obviously, but it was still a new huge ship for Carnival, but it kind of just felt like poof, it just kind of appeared overnight, and now
Right.
it's doing sailings from Miami every,
Mhm.
weekend.
Celebration's been
Exactly.
out for a year.
Yeah.
Celebration turned 1 like 2-3 weeks ago.
Yeah. And it's just crazy. But
Yeah.
yeah, so I mean Royal Caribbean's doing a very good job with a lot of things right now. Except for
Mhm.
pricing.
Except for pricing. Yeah, for real.
It's doing good for them, maybe not for
Oh,
us.
for them,
Maybe
of
not.
course.
Yeah, from a consumer standpoint, I don't know, but for a business
Right.
standpoint, man, those shareholders are happy.
Oh
yeah.
my god, I'm sure.
Yeah, and Ryan in the chat even says Mardi Gras didn't get much marketing. And that one was more, COVID played into that one.
Yeah.
They got that one out as soon as they were allowed to even sail the thing.
Right.
Yeah.
But like,
The biggest marketing I remember that was Shaq.
yeah,
'Cause I remember the inaugural sailing from Canaveral. Shaq was like on it. I don't think he actually sailed on it, but like he was there,
yeah.
right somewhere. I saw a bunch of videos and whatever. I didn't
Yeah,
physically see him, but he was there.
Hmm.
he was. Jeez, I can't get my phone to stay up. He was. Like I said, I don't
Hmm.
think he sailed, but they did do a bunch of
Yeah.
media stuff on board.
Mhm.
Yeah, and again, you can't rely on just John Heald as your press guy, and then you also can't rely. I love Shaq. He's so cool, and I think he's a cool addition to the company,
Yeah.
as for what he does. But that can't be your marketing standpoint. Throw an ad together showing. I mean, they do show the roller coaster on the thing, but like, you don't show, you know much else. You show like, oh, there's a roller coaster, and that's a big deal. But there's also, not everybody's there to go on a roller coaster.
Right.
Show, the crazy, water slides and things like that. Do like a POV of the, everything. Show the people, relaxing, having a good time watching a movie at night. And
Right.
then they go downstairs, or they have, this meal at the Italian restaurant. Carnival's Italian restaurants are unmatched. I love Carnival's Italian. It's so much better than anybody else, at least from what I've experienced. But like, show them
And
going
they could show like the live entertainment in the
right.
not the atrium. What are they? What's it? The piazza? What do they call it now? Like
Oh,
the big glass
Grand
window
Central.
on the top.
Grand Central.
Yeah, yeah. Like they can
Yeah.
show the entertainment going on there, or like
Oops,
they
my
need it. Like you
headphones-
said, they just need a
cut my
revamp
headphones off.
their marketing team.
My headphones cut out. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, cool. All right. I think I missed like half of that, but yeah, like,
Whatever, you get it.
yeah, I get it. Like, show the progression of like a day, especially when Celebration Key comes, that's gonna be a big deal. That's gonna be a big marketing standpoint. And I think that's really gonna help them out a lot. Show them, having fun on the island. Then they get back on board. They have their meal, they have dinner, or they have, have a great time on the roller coaster or whatever it is.
Right.
And then, they go to dinner, have a really nice dinner. Then they go watch the shows, or relax and show like all the options that they have on these ships. Because that's what Royal Caribbean's doing. They're showing, people are having a great time in Coco Cay. Not to make the
Right.
pun of Perfect Day at Coco Cay, But, there's a lot of different ways, Royal Caribbean's approaching it, and I think Carnival could take some notes.
I mean, even that's a
Definitely.
marketing point. It's such an iconic like phrase at this point, but it's marketing, marketing, marketing.
Yeah,
It really is. I mean, not to make the pun, but it really is. I mean, I've never had a bad time in Coco Cay.
same.
That place is
Yeah.
amazing. I mean, you got
Mhm.
zip lines, you got jet skis, you got a giant pool with a swim up bar if you're just wanting to chill. You got
I love it.
private cabanas. The private cabanas are amazing. I've done that twice. That was really good. You get your own bar service. Like there's so many options that you have. Where I think
Right.
Carnival just needs to whatever approach they make with these new ships and this next generation ships, whether it's completely next gen, revive and refit the Conquest class or whatever it is, they need to approach Celebration Key however they go about the ships. They need to celebrate or go about Celebration Key just a little bit differently and just I think really focus on the marketing of it all, just so where they can bring the hype back to Carnival. Because honestly, ever since COVID, there's not really been a whole lot of hype around Carnival.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's kind of we'll go ahead and kind of wrap everything up here. But yeah, it's definitely a great conversation. I feel like we got a lot of tangents about Royal Caribbean, but they were good
Yeah.
tangents because it was comparing and contrasting the two and the approaches that both of these cruise lines have had.
Right.
Good comparisons, yeah.
Exactly, because again, Carnival's not worried about Norwegian. They're not worried about the Prima class, no, nothing like that.
Well,
That they're even
No.
aiming those ships at at a completely different market. It seems like, but Carnival kind of needs to be worried about Royal Caribbean if they're not already, they need to be.
right.
Just
I'm sure they are with the
on.
amount that
Mhm.
just yeah. It's kind of like it feels like the Universal and Disney, the
Absolutely,
ever living conflict between those two
Right.
places and companies and
yeah,
whatever
Exactly.
you want to put more so in the theme park, but like, they still have
yeah,
their own media side. Disney has branched out so much
hmm
Yeah.
recently,
and
but like
Universal's mopping the floor when it comes to theme parks now. They're
yeah,
It's crazy what
Disney's
they're
with the
doing.
expansion, yeah.
exactly. Epic Universe is pretty much
If you have a
running.
chance to like look at that area, you should look at that area because it's absolutely crazy.
Yeah, I'm hyped
Yeah,
for
I
the
mean,
Super Mario area.
yeah, it's literally taking Disney 5+ years to renovate one section of Epcot,
hmm
yet Universal within that same time frame is building an entire new technology-filled theme park, three brand new hotels, and that might be it to start for phase
hmm
one. And that's just phase one.
hmm
So it's
Yeah.
just crazy to see
That's
what's going on over
an
there.
exact comparison with Royal Caribbean Carnival because Carnival is now, it's going to be 3, 4, 5 years before they get a new ship out with,
Oh yeah.
now you've got Icon of the Seas is essentially a theme park and a destination of its own, and
Right.
it's a floating city. And, they're pumping out a new one. They've got one next year. They got one coming in 2025. They got one coming in 26. And you got
Yep.
a new project that's not even
Yeah.
being announced
Yeah.
yet. And
So
if it's the size that they're looking at, about 120,000 tons, I wouldn't be surprised if we see Icon 3 and Project Discovery in 2026.
yeah.
The
So
way they're handling
bottom line
things.
of this
Yeah.
podcast was Carnival needs to get their stuff together.
Carnival really needs to start, marketing and advertising, just start teasing us a little bit of what they're planning. Again,
Right.
Hmm.
the the Venezia, the Firenze, maybe fingers crossed for the Smeralda from Costa. But you can't rely
That
on
would
just
be pretty
transferring
great.
ships over,
Right.
just to create hype and everything like
Yeah.
that. They gotta start building new stuff.
Definitely.
But yeah, with that, I hope you guys all enjoyed it. Thank you, Jerry, for hanging out with us tonight and coming on the
Of
podcast.
course.
And
Yeah, it was good seeing you, Jerry.
Yeah, I had a great time. Yeah, gonna have to
um,
hang out again.
for sure, for sure, we did this podcast a little earlier than normal just due to the holiday. But typically every Wednesday night at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we do a podcast episode. So we hope to see you guys all in the next one, and have a good night. Thanks for watching.
Bye bye.
Yeah.